And here on DawgNation Daily, presented by ServPro, happy to have from the SEC Network, Peter Burns. Peter, feels like just right here once again, getting ready to start this season, and already a lot of energy around SEC Media Days. What's day one been like for you?
As long as I don't have to hang out with Mike Griffith, I'm in good shape. So, this is already a win for me in my book. I'll tell you, this feels like a different, newer version of Media Days than we've ever had. And the reason why I say that is that it feels like ever since 2020, there's always been something just huge going on, whether it was the pandemic, or then it was realignment, then it was Texas and Oklahoma's first year, then it was transfer portal, the House settlement, all that BS. And then finally, this is the first time in a long time, Brandon, I feel like we're talking about football. The problem is nobody really knows what the hell the rosters are right now because there's so much churn. I mean, we're talking about Ole Miss having 4 returning starters. I mean, this is wild right now.
So when you look at Georgia, they're among 3 teams the highest projected win total, but it still feels a little bit different, I think, for some people because Georgia's they won the SEC, but not coming off a deep advance to the college football playoff. Where do you feel like Georgia fits into kind of the larger conversation happening around the SEC right now?
I mean, rightfully where they are. I mean, that's the crown, right? I mean, you talk about what Kirby has built ever since he really went on that run is that he's going to put himself in a position to play in this city for the SEC championship game. Now, that also kind of depends at some point, hey, how's the quarterback play? How healthy are you? How much do these transfers actually matter? I mean, you go back and look at the wide receiver issue right now. I mean, every single game we sat there and go, all right, how many drops is it going to be? And I know you guys and your fans have talked about it ad nauseum, but we'd be in the studio and Benjamin Watson's like, are you kidding? Mm-hmm. He would never curse. He's too good of a human to do that.
Of course.
And so I think you've put yourself in the mix. And I covered the Denver Broncos for 4 years in when I was out there. And the idea was never going to be who is by far the best. It was, or do you have a good enough team to get into the playoff? And once you got into the playoff, could you win it? And there's no doubt with the foundation that Kirby has built in the recruiting. I mean, he's crushing it once again, shockingly, that they put themselves in that position.
Now, of course, we did have to give you a little grief early in the summer because of on the radio show. What was the line that the SEC?
I was so kind of an idiot. I don't remember. I'm like a cornerback. Ready? You get burned once, you don't forget about it.
Well, if you're like me, you also say so much over the course of the summer. By the time we get to the end of the summer, who knows what said what? But it is interesting because.
But what I said real quick, it was about that I thought that the road through the SEC went through Texas, and a lot of that had to do with because of what I've seen Sark offensively have built there, and it felt really more of the quarterback situation. Now, I've seen a little bit of Gunner. Kirby's seen a whole lot more than I have. But at the same point, I felt like there was going to be more offensive success over at Texas than I thought that there was going to be with Georgia.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting. You go back a couple of years ago, Georgia and Texas had almost no history with each other. They were essentially strangers, right?
Not anymore.
You played twice last year. You've got at least one game on deck for this year. You can kind of go pretty quickly to suddenly there feels like there's a little bit of a rivalry here because both teams obviously aspire to a national championship. I was at both games a year ago. Incredible level of intensity. That is kind of some of the fun of the new SEC where you take these big macro brands, throw them on a field together, and pretty soon you've got a pretty interesting storyline that starts to play
and
out.
it was, and it still is to a certain extent, Georgia and Alabama. But when you add the element of nobody wanted Texas to win in their first year of this conference, every other team was like, well, we don't like Texas, but we actually will probably still want to pull for Georgia at that
I've had opposing fans come up and basically say thank you for not letting Texas, even though I obviously not playing the game.
Because you got to earn it, right? You got to pay your dues.
I think a lot of people like the idea of a legacy SEC team winning the SEC in Texas' first year. I think that was real, Peter.
I don't hate it. And one of those things, too, is I will say this. They run their programs very differently, but they're also obsessive about success. And what I mean by that is I've been in Kirby Smart's office or in the hallways in Athens when Shane Beamer was a special teams coach for him. I was in there, Brennan, in the middle of March one time, and I'm visiting Shane, and we're just BSing. Nothing's going on, no practice or whatever. And Kirby just makes a beeline, right over to where we're at. And I'm thinking he's coming to say hello. No. He's like, Shane, we need to go take a look at the field goal protection on this, and this. And I'm like, buddy, this is March the 15th. And I remember when I would go to practice, we would, mic up Kirby for all of these kind of SEC inside and these things, we couldn't use 97% of the footage. God damn, get this guy off the field. He's the worst, blank. But you realize he ran his program a certain way, and it was obsessive, and he learned that from Nick Saban, and that's why Kirby's the best coach in all of football right now. Sark does it in a different way, but it's that still amount, that attention to detail it's kind of just the offensive version of Kirby is Sark, and you see Kirby being Kirby.
I'll let you go on this. For Georgia fans this year, probably the biggest home schedule of my lifetime, right? Alabama comes in, Ole Miss comes in, Texas comes in. But it's that Alabama game in September. People know the backstory here. Obviously, the dramatic game a year ago that the comeback for Georgia fell a little bit short. How big is that one for Georgia this year? You don't want Kalen DeBoer to get a second win on you as he tries to build his program in Tuscaloosa. And plus, just what has kind of been the nemesis standing in Georgia's way. How big do you view that Alabama game for Georgia in late September?
I mean, not as big as I view the Texas game, believe it or not, because I think that it was always more about Saban and Kirby than it was Georgia and Alabama. And albeit I know what happened last year, but that was such a fluky game for so many different reasons. But, so I look at it as like, to me, if I'm Georgia, the new Alabama is Texas right now, and that's going to be the litmus. But still, the new Georgia is still going to be Georgia. I mean, that's still going to be the gold standard of it right now. And the conference itself is still going to be the gold standard of it. I mean, listen, I know we're going on a 2-year drought, but there's also, I think, 2, maybe 3 if you add Penn State with the way that they brought back Drew Aller this year. I think there's 3 teams in the Big Ten. I think there's 6 teams that could compete for a title here in the conference.
You're doing great work on TV, SEC Network, also the radio as well. Remind folks how they can see you guys, all the stuff you got going on this week.
Yell at me on Twitter or Instagram at Peter Burns ESPN, especially when I say dumb things like, Texas runs through the SEC.
Georgia fans have rabbit ears, you know that.
Good. You know what? Hold us accountable for that. That's what makes this conference the best. That's why we have so many damn people covering it.
Peter Burns, SEC Network.